Greetings and welcome to Wellness Travel 2030. And wherever you are in the world, we send you our warmest wishes and best regards. My name is John Nielsen. I'm the host today from the Wellness Tourism Association. I also act as the General Manager of Five Elements Retreat in Bali. We're joined by some real specialists today on this conversation, and we hope that you will enjoy the next 1 hour chat about the trends and what's happening in the wellness world. So first of all, welcome to Molly Anderson, Vice President of Sales from Canyon Ranch in the US. How are you, Molly?
I'm very good, thank you. Wonderful to be here.
So Molly, tell us a bit about your background and your interest in the wellness travel world.
Absolutely. I've been here with actually the Canyon Ranch organization for a little over 8 years. I have spent time both in the sales and operations. Prior to that, I've been blessed by being associated with other wellness brands that are here in the United States. I worked for Miraval and I worked for Enchantment Group. So besides working for some traditional hospitality companies, I keep being drawn back to the wellness properties because I absolutely feel that there is life transformational experiences happening. It's not a transaction, it's an experience, and this is where I belong. So I'm very happy that I've spent so much time and be blessed to work at some wonderful places.
And Molly, what's your favorite wellness activity?
My personal favorite wellness activity is being outdoors hiking. So it can be found anywhere, right? My personal favorite experience that we offer at Canyon Ranch is more of a spiritual experience with a practitioner we have that uses the crystal alchemy bowls and actually places them on you. So you're hearing it, but you're also feeling the vibrations. And as you walk away from the service, it has an experience or an effect on you that lasts a long time, but you don't anticipate that. So it's a surprise and delight, as I like to say.
Sounds absolutely gorgeous and sounds wonderful. And yes, that's maybe Molly on the picture sitting out there looking over the hills, but maybe it's a bit hotter where you are in Arizona. Let's jump all the way over to Budapest, where we find Laszlo. And Laszlo has done a huge amount of work on this wonderful presentation. So Laszlo, let's tell us a bit about your background.
Thank you, John, and hello, Molly, and hello, everyone. That's really my pleasure to be here with you today and discuss some of these interesting findings and path-making results. I don't have such a glorious experience in terms of managing properties as Molly, and a little bit jealous, of course. Because of that, I have been working on the strategy as well as conceptual development part of the field for 20 odd years, various capacities, government as well as international trade or investors part. But I always was very interested in anything to do with travel and well-being. Sometimes it's medical, sometimes it's wellness, sometimes it's neither, but still contributing to wellness. So that's always there, one way or another.
Thank you very much, Laszlo. It's great to see you. So personally, I've been in the game of hospitality for too many years, but I've actually always been into sport, and I think that's how I really started my early part of my career, being into various sports, seriously into squash. But health has kind of always followed me, and it was ironic that I probably not very much for later in life actually went into a wellness business. Having worked for companies like Hyatt, Mandarin Oriental, I then joined some years ago the Swiss hotel school Le Roche from Carl Montana in Switzerland, and ran the Chinese operation, and that was part of the Blue Mountains Hotel Management School operation also in China. And so I sort of entered into education, but I was drawn back to Bali. And back to the world of wellness. And is there anything special that I love about Bali? I just love being outdoors, like you, Molly. I think that outdoors sensation gives you so much thrill. And sometimes I like to walk outdoors and play a game of golf. But somebody says that's a bad way to spoil a good walk. But it's wellness in one way or another. A key thing today is, of course, the wellness travel aspect and the Wellness Tourism Association, who we all three have been very much involved with. A little bit about the Wellness Tourism Association. It was incorporated in 2018. It's fundamentally a non-for-profit organization. Molly, you've been part of the board of directors for some time. Maybe you can explain a bit about, in details, a bit about the Wellness Tourism Association.
Absolutely. So I've been a board member since, or participating board member since about October. But Canyon Ranch was one of the founding members of the Wellness Tourism Association since its inception. And I was just on the peripheral as opposed to the board. But I think what's wonderful about the Wellness Tourism Association is really, we started out with really coming up with some clear definitions of wellness tourism and the different components of it, because there is a lot of play in wellness as it relates to travel, hospitality, et cetera. So how to really differentiate a perhaps wellness offering at a traditional organization with true wellness component of travel. And I think as we go through a lot of what is going to be presented today, it really does identify what wellness is versus having perhaps just a wellness amenity or a healthy menu item.
Yeah, and I thank you, Molly. And I, a bit like you, was attracted to the Wellness Tourism Association because I love the fact that it, as a non-for-profit organization, it really is there to support travel agents. It's there to support people who want to go on a trip. And I think it's important that they have that great knowledge. And I think the Wellness Tourism Association really creates that in an environment to support travel agents. So ultimately the traveler can go to the destination of they would like, knowing a lot about the information and having a person in an office who is selling them the right destination, which I think is the important. So education for me comes back to my educational background, and yeah. For sure with Laszlo you have that same scenario. Laszlo, how did you get involved in the Wellness Travel Association?
I had the privilege to meet the founder of the association many years ago, at a very different occasion back in Canada, and Diamond talking about here, and ever since we kept contact, but it was honestly, I wouldn't say last century, but almost. So good time ago. And I always followed up what was been happening, and it was really my pleasure to join the association when the opportunity came. And ever since helping with intelligence development and understanding what's going on, as Molly said, it's absolutely essential that we have evidence and we have data and we have knowledge and we share that knowledge. And this exercise, what we're going to present now, is as part of this whole approach, that we want to know more of what's happening and how we can help industry partners, let it be corporate level or individual SME level or even government level or trade, that to show them what's going on and what opportunities they have. I think that really is an essential role, an association like this. I'm very pleased to facilitate and help a little bit that process.
So we hope that people looking at this presentation will maybe join the Wellness Travel Association, because it's very easy to join. It's great value, and I think the best part is that you end up with really great information, whether you're doing research, whether you're a travel agent, whether you're a hotel, whether you're a wellness destination in some part of the world. Join in and get that information. As I said, it's very good value as an individual, even as a company. It's a non-for-profit organization, so it's really there more to help and deliver research and information and help your staff and help your team point whoever guest you are talking to in the right direction. So go to our website and get involved today. So let's go to Lazo. Let's go to the start of the research that you've done, the Wellness and Travel Outlook for 2030. So we're of course, in a very much in a difficult, challenging stage of the world at the moment, and a lot of readings will tell you that the wellness travel world is going to explode. We're going to see a huge and talking to Molly. Molly's running very strong occupancies. We're seeing similar demands, I think, across the world where people are desperate to travel. And in many ways, it's the perfect storm for domestic travel around the world. People don't really want to travel over international borders, even though people are desperate, but people do understand the risks. So I'm sure we'll find a lot more about this, what the future trends are, and what Laszlo has found out in his report. So Laszlo, do you want to talk a bit about the mythology of how you came to the Wellness Travel Report 2030?
Thank you, John. Yes, very briefly, not to bore the audience with technical details, but I think in every research or every intelligence or market intelligence that anybody may come across with, you really, really need to look at how certain data and information have been collected. That makes a difference, and that gives the necessary foundations of, let's say, that forecast or outlook. This given study that we did together with WTA, and I really appreciate the support, and thank you for all, everybody in the team, and also the interviewees who we talked to. As you can see, it's a very good coverage in terms of countries as well as representatives. This is not a consumer survey. This is specifically aiming at industry. And at the same time, we parallel to that, we interviewed academia representatives. I think I can take the liberty to say that this was the very first study of the kind, and that actually decided that we would do parallel, the academic part and the industry part. And the objective of that was that we know, because personally I know that I've been in academia and industry for this 20-something years, that both parties would really learn a lot from the other, just they may not have the time and don't have the outlet to share respective information with the other. So we wanted to create a platform that industry can share what they see and academia can share how they see it, since they spend so much time of researching of what's going on or what has been going on.
Very interesting.
And now we are really basically putting together, merging the data, and we highlight all the necessary outcomes. So that's the very background to the methodology. So we use the academic rigor, but the industry interest as a combination.
So what did we find out?
Well, we found out a lot, John. I have to tell you a few data very briefly. But I think it's very important to understand that anyone, and Molly can really, and John, both of you can really support that, since you have been in the field and for quite some time and running fabulous places yourselves. And that the balance of or attention to pillars of wellness would need to be looked at, let's say, one more time. Since in general, we understand that this is what the confirmation as well from data, that typically when anyone talks about it, not just industry, when anyone talks about it, it's going to be the physical part, which would be manifested in treatments or massages or any such thing. But we need to really, as many times as we can, repeat that wellness is not just the physical. It has all the other pillars as well, the social, the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, and occupational. And this is how we would need to look at the complexity of wellness. And you can see the two parties are relatively in agreement of how we as human beings look at that. And beyond this very focus on the physical part, we also we try to understand how it is happening in wellness in particular. So beyond the general context, how does the wellness industry or anything to do with wellness looks at it. And we can see that beyond the physical, the emotional part, emotional pillar is relatively strong compared to the others. So there's a bit more balance here. But still, we are very much focusing on the physical and the emotional pillar.
So, Laszlo, can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
You talk to, so the readers understand it. The pillars, is that your key drivers or your triggers, or how would you explain that to the layman?
Yes, when we talk about pillars, it's a constructed phenomenon. We will talk about triggers. That will be the next topic of our discussion, because triggers are really the things, and I don't want to be very kind of scientific here, all those things that really make you even look for something or make you buy something. That's the trigger. Yes. And then it will be manifested in a motivation. That's how it goes. Pillars are the groups of issues, parameters, characteristics that can provide this umbrella understanding of a certain component of the total system. And system here is the wellness, and wellness would have all those pillars. So the wellness stands on all those pillars, so like 6 legs, not just 1 leg, but 6 legs. And Molly, that's the message here.
And Molly, when you look at those pillars, are they similar to what you found in Canyon Ranch?
Yes, similar. It's interesting, as Laszlo talked about triggers, we have a different way of speaking about them, but they are all included in the experience. So we would group, for instance, nutrition and food, which may actually tie into almost all. It could be emotion. It could also be your education, like the intellectual part of it. But we basically try to encourage all of our guests through either the packages we've created or the guidance they receive prior to arrival, to not just focus on what might be their comfort. And so it's always interested me, the physical. And as Laszlo noted, to me, those are definitely the actual tangible services that people often say, I'm coming, I'm going to, and Canyon Ranch has won numerous spa awards. But as our founder used to say, he really truly hoped that you might have come because of the spa service or the fitness class, but that during your stay, you discovered something else. You discovered something else that sparked your curiosity, your spiritual journey, or maybe you found out something about your own health and a way to improve it. So that's how we kind of, I really enjoyed reading through the report extensively and looking kind of at a lot of the comments about balance and what, trying to get a more even distribution of the pillars and that.
Yeah, it's something that we use similarly in Bali. We always say, the journey of life transformation, which Molly, you touched on at Canyon Ranch. And I think for anybody going through into wellness, it's a journey. I mean, there's some of us who prefer the physical aspect, and I was doing some research into a wellness study, and I kind of look at it, and Laszlo and I have talked about this, that you have almost the two main points. You have the psychological and you have the physical part of the pillars or the points, and it's very interesting how you see that people will sort of merge those two together, because I think the one supports very much the other one, and I think a lot of people say to me, I mean, I'm a avid gym and goer, and people say to me, why do I do it? And I often say it's really to keep my balance, and to know mentally that when I go out for dinner or wherever I go, I'm quite happy to eat what I want to eat. I don't worry too much about it, because I know, on the other hand, I'm working out and I'm doing lots of activities to keep myself fit. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of wellness, is that you get that balance within your body. And I think it has a lot of support, and it's wonderful to see how many guests are really embracing wellness in that sense, and getting out there and interacting with the areas, as Molly, as you touched on, that they may not normally want to go through. And the spiritual part is so important, and I think it's, you know, it's sometimes harder in some places to do it, but I think it's a wonderful environment that we have in Bali, and I know, and in Arizona you've got an amazing environment also. So I think that has so much to play, and in Bali, the founders of Five Elements, they were very much about creating that environment, and our location is exactly that, what that's all about, being in the middle of the jungle and by the river. You get that wonderful serenity.
May I add to this discussion that since it's that's a B2B discussion that we're doing now, so we don't necessarily talk about a B2C language, and I'm very glad, John, that you asked this. What the hell is a pillar? Because that's really is one of the issues when I work with, let's say, government, international agencies, individual developers. We really run into this issue that they would like to jump the hoops and not necessarily going through, systematically of conceptual product development.
Yep.
And instantly we run into the communication, how we're going to sell it, instead of having very strong foundations that these are the major pillars, directions you want to go to and want to address, based on which we would provide certain services, and those services would provide this and this benefit or result to the guests. So instead of going through this, you might say it's a long process of creating all those and laying the foundations. Any time we work is always focusing on get the foundations right and solid, and then onwards the various treatments and various services can be defined and can be added or even modified as time goes on. But your foundations will be really, really solid. That's why we go back to the very, very basic and very really fundamental components of when we talk about wellness first. That yes, I would be more interested in the social component, shall we say. And especially when we now talk about social distancing, which personally I think it's a bad choice of words. We would be talking about physical distancing, if I may.
I totally agree with you.
And not social distancing, because that's now I think everybody can recognize that what we really miss is the social component of life, because you can't. And not anyway, but that's it's like a semantics little discussion here. But people will be interested in when we even just talk about bubbles, the gas bubbles. The social experiment and the social time with others. But for example, there's one of the challenges and even trends. We can see that the wellness spaces and the spa spaces are not ready to provide group-based activities or group-based treatments for the matter. Yes, we have classes, yes. But when you say that, all right, we would like to have a treatment as a group of friends, because that's how we would like to do it, and we have only individual treatment rooms. So how is that going to happen?
Yeah,
so
we
have a lot of challenges now.
It's a real balance there, isn't it?
Interesting that we have the largest day spa in the United States in Las Vegas, located inside the Venetian Palazzo. And Laszlo, your comment about group is really interesting, because as we were meeting with designers to make updates and renovations, this demand for group services. And how do you identify that? We used to have maybe a room that could accommodate 2 people, but really what are people wanting? And it's not, the perception at first was that it's just a younger generation, but it's not necessarily a younger generation. So, creating spaces that can be interactive also, from a service perspective, is really kind of fun and exciting to think about what is going to be in the future, and envisioning. And with that, we also shared spaces for gatherings, and we're in the process of a new website, and the request for group. So, reflecting on this, the request for group, not just spa services, but just experiences that you can have with the people you choose. So not opting into maybe a group activity, but these are the people I came with, these are the people I'm traveling with, these are the like-minded individuals I'm with, and actually putting our group experiences menu together right now as we speak to launch onto our new website, because people are elated to see one another for the first time in 18 months, for example, or even in sometimes longer. For some people, it's been 2 years because they only had an annual trip or something. But it's an interesting evolution right now.
And that supports very much what I've seen going on in Asia, where we've seen a stronger desire for people to come and go into groups and join into, whether they're doing a week of fitness and trying to lose weight, or they're doing a week of learning how to create new culinary dishes, or whatever it may be. But it's about the group activities. I only attended just a couple of weeks ago a cheese making class, and it was highly enjoyable. But the amazing part was that the founder of these classes, she told me that they basically sell them out in very little time. And she said, prior to the COVID challenges, she said, yeah, they would sell okay. She said, since COVID, it's amazing how much more they've been selling. And some friends of mine, they go every year to a fitness sort of week. They go down to, with the opportunity to increase their fitness and eat properly, or eat better, should I say. They said, yeah, I mean, it's totally booked out. So it supports very much what Molly is saying, and how, people, and through the aspect of what Laszlo is touching on social distancing and physical distancing, we really actually now want to see people, but we've been told you can't. So it's an interesting balance that we've all finding. Laszlo, if you want to talk a bit about, so what attention do you really should be given to these pillars? I mean, what should sellers, or what should travel agent companies and wellness companies focus on?
Yes, when we talk about pillars in general, and I need to repeat myself that this is industry language. This is development language. This is not direct sales language. You can't put it onto a website or on a brochure or a promotion. That's not the language. This is the language when you are creating services or creating value propositions, and then you talk to guests based on this. So I'm just reconfirming that this is, we never suggest that now you would need to address your future guests as, oh, would you be interested in spiritual pillars, please? Because that wouldn't potentially go down rather well.
There'll be a language training afterwards.
Before, please, because then they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. So the attention, as you can see, is instantly you can see that the industry believes that, and also academia, that we should be having a way more balanced look into the various pillars, and bringing up the social, the intellectual pillar, and the spiritual into the same level, closer to emotional. And when you look at the how the actual balance should take place, and this is when we have the opportunities for the service providers of how you create that balance, depending on where you are, what assets you are sitting on, physical and or cultural or natural. You have various options of how to build that. So what I think the research is often done for the sake of doing research, which I personally don't really like. What is more important is to have that research being translated to industry level, that guys, this piece of finding suggests that there should be a more balanced attention given to all those pillars, and that could be implemented at your place in the following way. Since if you don't follow this train of logic, then all those trends and pieces of information may look great in a report, but then, the everyday activities may wash away the great idea, and the person or persons at an organization may not have the time even to look into it. So we need to provide the bridging, and that's why we do these studies, and that's how we need to look into how this balancing can take place. And obviously, Molly and also you, Dom, your facilities have been practicing this for quite some time to provide that balance.
So how do we tell the industry to find that balance? I mean, how do we tell a hotel or a wellness facility in the middle of the Middle East? How do you find that balance? What should be your main triggers that you should be looking at?
Obviously, we always have the physical. That's relatively easy. But even the physical, how you provide the social context to the physical experience that already is adding to the balance. How the service is being introduced. Is it going to be self-gifting? You know, that expression that when you gift yourself. So you're worth it. You self-gifting service. Then you already talk about the emotional component. Is it going to be something in which you can take part yourself? Because then you address the intellectual element of it. So when we, create that space where anything is provided, if it's a solo male, then it would need to be very different from if it's solo female, especially in GCC. We see the market that is expected that solo male travelers are going to be one of the fastest growing segments in the next couple of years, who will travel for wellness purposes. How that space is being created in terms of giving privacy or giving an opportunity to meet like-minded people, but you have to take really seriously the cultural expectations and sometimes the religious expectations and rules that you have to take into consideration. So it's, when we expect to give the eternal truth of how that should happen, I'm always hesitating, because I think the best way is to apply it to every single location differently. It's not a general rule that this is how now every single service in GCC would need to implement the balance. It's more like, what's your main value proposition here? Which pillar you really are building on, or you really look at it as the most important one, and how you bring the other pillars around it.
Very interesting.
But that really must be at individual property level or even treatment level. And this is why we talk about, and John, you have been in education as well. You know that when you, let's say, experience creation and the service flow, that's a subject. That's an experience, not just an experience, but that's a skill. That's a knowledge.
Yep.
You can't just, invent it. There is protocols, there are rules, there are recommendations of how you follow that, how the flow is being created, how the enchantment is being brought in. That's a job. That you have people who create experiences. That's their job. That's what they really know. And we don't talk about interior design. I think we need to really highlight here, we're not interior design we're talking about here. We're talking about creating that service flow to which we bring in various elements and components. And at the end of the day, as Molly, you said, is going to be a balanced experience. And, your guests will not say, oh, hang on, guys, I don't think you paid enough attention to the, let's say, intellectual pillar in your service proposition. No one will tell you that. But this is our job to know that.
But I think Laszlo, and I'm sure Molly will have her views on that the interior design and the design of every single wellness destination really is about using some real fundamentals in terms of light and colors and making sure that service experience from when you arrive or before you arrive, and Molly touched on that prior to arrival, the guests receive a form that they fill out, and it gives the staff who are welcoming them lots of information. I think all that balance has to be really taken care of, because ultimately when you're on a wellness trip, on a wellness holiday in a wellness destination, it's really about making sure that the environment is catering towards that beauty or that calmness or whatever it may be that the destination is looking at. And I suppose, Molly, from going back to your Las Vegas example, that is a key aspect of that building.
Yeah, and there's one other thing I'd like to say too. You know, when you're talking about as an industry, what can we even do better to bring more balance? We've struggled because the awards right now, there are definitely awards for design, right? So the best design, design from a component of building a beautiful spa facility, a beautiful wellness facility. And then there's a lot of awards for the best service or being known for offering the best services. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we basically strive as a provider to win those awards at the sacrifice of incorporating and really paying attention to a lot of the other fundamental pillars, as you say, Laszlo. Like when you're actually building your base, it's very attractive to cater to go out for and focus on one thing that you know you can be recognized for. When I think you're cutting the entire wellness experience short by doing that.
Yep, that's a very, very good point. And I think sometimes that's what happens, I suppose, in many, whether you're dining in a restaurant. I always have a saying to students in food and beverage that for me, the fundamentals of delivering a good restaurant is, and when you ask a lot of students of the industry, you say to them, what's the fundamentals of delivering a good restaurant? Everybody always focuses on, the food. Everybody always forgets there's actually somebody who's serving you, and there's actually somebody who's creating that wonderful environment and the attention to the detail. And then, as I always say, it's actually the environment that really makes you go into a comfortable restaurant or comfortable hotel or whatever it may be you're in. But the more comfort that you can create, the more design elements that you can take into that balance, that's how you're actually going to find the real success of a great restaurant. The design aspect is so important because, of course, it attracts people to the place, but delivering the soft furnishings and delivering the food in the right time and with a big smile is really that combination. There's not one of them that's more or less important of the two. And if you don't get that balance right, then there's always going to be a challenge. Laszlo, your triggers that you talk about, be it fitness or pampering, what did you find out through your study?
One of the major interest of this study was to go a little bit deeper and really drill deep in the psyche of the guest, of what exactly is the one that I really want. Because we understand that we sell treatments, but we buy rejuvenation. If I may use this, separation, that when you actually sell a service which is available on the menu, but I'm not interested in services, I'm interested in benefits and interested in values. And for example, rejuvenation is that really, really what I want, which is manifested or delivered through a treatment. But it is my job as an experience creator, for the matter, how that rejuvenation would be delivered, how many different ways I can offer that very same trigger, how can I address the very same trigger. And this is sometimes when we miss the boat, when we talk about service development and menu creations and all that and you say, we are having 47 different treatments in the menu, so that's brilliant. And what do? Those 47 different treatments. They do relaxation. And I said, people cannot choose from more than 7, 8 unique things at a time because it's just way too stressful. So they will get stressed before they even start to get relaxed. So you're doing something not perfectly. So anyway, we really wanted to have a better understanding. And this is, I think, when academia can really help you a lot, since academic colleagues have been, one of the job description, is to do research and to understand what is happening out in the market. What do customers do and how they make decisions, how they define their own needs. And I think to have a better understanding in this, we can see that the balance between the answers is not that great, as in the academic party may not say the same thing as the industry colleagues did, which is good because that's exactly what we wanted to know and wanted to have a better understanding between the two parties. But issues such as self-healing, yes, of course, relaxation and all that, that's fine, we know that. But self-healing, which is not medical, may I say, in terms of healthcare, but more like a holistic approach, or distress, especially post-COVID, that's a major and fundamental trigger here. But how you are going to offer anything that actually addresses the distress need or the self-healing need, this is the beauty of our work, if I may, because we have amazing opportunities. How are we going to offer this? And that's exactly the story here of how we are trying to find out what would fit best our own property or own destination in terms of trigger points, and how many more triggers we need to understand, because this is just the global data. When you look at local data, that might be a total different scenario. And it is really important for any communication department, sales department. I'm sure Molly can really confirm that it makes a difference how you're going to address any kind of trigger point in terms of communication. That is a major challenge here.
And I think, Lazo, you touched on a very, very good point about not overwhelming the guest to a large degree. And I think it's something that so many businesses do in hospitality. We almost get too passionate and too excited that we end up with these massive menus, be they a wine list, or be they a menu for the dining aspect, or be they exactly a spa menu, where you as you say, there's more stress in actually trying to figure out what am I going to have, than actually understanding it. And the old expression, keep it simple, sweetheart, I think rings very true, because I think there's, and I've seen it in a lot of places that I've gone to, and I've said, oh, what do I choose? So I think it's a real message that we as an industry need to say, calm down with having too many treatments, because really it's just not the requirements for it. Molly?
It's interesting, because I would say that, we talked about post-COVID or what people have experienced in the last year and a half. I believe that some of the triggers have definitely changed. And we are seeing that certain email communications, as well as one of our new pathways we created that is called Reconnect with Joy, is resonating with a lot of people. So whether it's an email that we deployed as a newsletter, people are responding to it and writing back to us and sharing their own experiences of what COVID has brought. And then there's the other people that are actually booking and coming, and we're seeing that our spiritual wellness providers, as well as our behavioral therapists, are the ones that are the most busy right now. And then on the other side, when you get into something like a massage situation, I had a massage therapist tell me the other day that a male guest who had come to us for the first time, his appointment was later in his stay, but she said his self-healing, and I will say his awareness of needing this self-healing became evident once he stepped out of his day-to-day environment into the Canyon Ranch environment, had an opportunity to really listen to his heart, perhaps, and realize what he was going through and what he was feeling. And the massage therapist told me that they didn't even end up with doing a massage treatment. He just ended up talking to her. So it was, that to me is a beautiful shift in, and I will totally agree that it's no surprise the industry has said that prevention and learning, because that's how we pitch everything, that we are going to teach you tools to take home and tools to live a life in balance and tools to lose weight. And we're going to help you prevent, we're going to help you prevent heart disease. But the reality is that so much work has to be done inside first. And that's interesting to me that academia really knows that. So as industry people, we have to listen to that. So Laszlo, I think you said, build this foundation and believe in the research, believe in what it's telling us.
Very good points, Ollie. Laszlo, so you want to continue a bit about the wellness travel?
Yes, certainly. Absolutely. And I'm always always happy to hear the confirmation. I so appreciate it. Because the research is not done for the sake of research. You always need to see if it's relevant and it makes any difference. So certainly, it's a good feedback. We can analyze the data a little bit further as well, and obviously, what we look at now is the Middle East, and interestingly, both international as well as domestic trips would be very similar in terms of importance, a role of in the totality of travel. So in most of the countries, such as if you look at it from Southeast Asia, for example, international travel has way more importance than domestic. But I think, Molly, you said in the very beginning that domestic, or even John, you as well, that people travel and look for options domestically or within their own countries. And that certainly is something that we would need to consider, especially when you are in GCC, and not just in Dubai, but also in Qatar, or you can be in Oman. You would have now facilities and destinations that's really offering amazing packages and are making services. So you wouldn't necessarily need to go far to find something which would be answering your very fundamental triggers.
And Laszlo, if I can just jump in there, I mean,
sure.
I think it's very interesting what's happening with, for example, Saudi Arabia's 2030 strategic tourism vision. And the retreats and the resorts that are being planned, that are in the pipeline. I mean, there's some amazing places to now visit. I mean, Dubai, of course, has extraordinary hotels. Abu Dhabi has amazing hotels. But I mean, destinations like Morocco, Israel, Jordan, Bahrain, Oman. I mean, there's so many beautiful places to go to. And I think it's there's a sort of a game changer shift. And I think the royal family in Saudi Arabia, I mean, their whole vision to change Saudi Arabia into much more of a tourism wellness destination really will change that shift. And talking to a colleague who was telling me about a place in Dubai where they made some structural changes and they saw much more domestic or local travel coming into it. And they said, domestic in terms of GCC countries. So I think there's a real opportunity for travel agents, for the industry to look deeper inside. And as I talked about earlier, I mean, definitely in places like Australia, where we, of course, have been very limited to what we can travel, people have suddenly just seen this perfect storm that's taken place where you really can, you really are limited to where you can go. But it means you in some sense, you look closer and you go further and you really start to see what can I actually do in my own backyard. I mean, how often do none of us play tourist in our own city? And you only do it if you actually have some visitors. So I think it's a really interesting move that COVID has created. That tourism will do much better, and then clients are really looking. Yes, people are desperate to travel, but people really can look internally or domestically.
Let me support what you just said, John, and refer back to WTA's other research project, which was the Travelers or Consumers Survey, which looked at how travelers look at their very own travel and wellness in the next couple of years. So WTA would have the opportunity to compare the industry as well as consumers' data of the same topic, which is really unique, I have to be honest with you, since that's not a typical thing to do. So anyone will really benefit from it, having both solid data available. Why I'm saying that is that we know that from that survey that the strong interest from the travelers to gain better knowledge, and that comes with the responsibility. how we introduce anything to do with wellness, how we are talking about it, what exactly are we saying, and how that can be translated into travel later. So we really need to make this point very strongly, that people want to gain more knowledge, not promotion, knowledge. That's the difference here. So we need to be prepared that they really want to know more of it, which is a great thing, since that makes them start to think about wellness-focused trips, which it may not translate instantly, you may not convert 100%, but it's a very good start if the foundations are going to be around. So we need to really take this data into consideration, and the industry would need to take into consideration the consumer data, that the market is more and more interested, happy to learn, and they start to think about these opportunities. So it's how we are going to be prepared for such opportunities and such challenges, if you will. And they also, beyond that, they look for wellness contributing options during their trips. Molly, you said in the beginning that there's a difference between a wellness trip and a healthy option. And you are referring to that difference, which is absolutely there, and you're totally right about it. But so probably that's a good start. Just a good start that to see that people are interested in anything that may contribute to their wellness as a first step.
So, Laszlo, going back to that question you had for Molly, how do you define a wellness trip? I mean, how do you, as you and I have talked about often, I mean, a wellness trip is not just checking in at a hotel and having one spa treatment. How do you define it? How do you really say this is what people are going through? This is what a part of a wellness trip. Molly, how do you sort of define those words?
You know, it's interesting because we recently did some research of our own, and with people that have stayed with us previously, people that have never stayed with us, and really listening to kind of how they are defining themselves. And one was wellness lifer, and I think that's the person that truly is seeking out an environment. So their trip is designed around their intention to honor their commitment to leading a wellness lifestyle, which I believe is a very holistic approach. So it's not just looking for a place where I can exercise, as we said, but really truly touches on all of the pillars mentioned earlier. And then there's another persona we identified, which is this emerging seeker, which is someone who really is on the cusp or on the outside looking in, almost of a little bit of envy, wishing that they were more active in their lifestyle, that maybe they wish that they had, you know, I always use the example of the person who calls and says, I'd like to attend a yoga retreat, but I've never done yoga. That's that emerging seeker that for whatever reason is drawn to that. And then the other category I find that kind of is on the edge of even medical tourism, but true wellness tourism is what I would call this, the eminent unwell, or something is wrong, or I need a second opinion, or I have a recent diagnosis, or I need to recover from surgery or prepare for surgery. So, you know, to me, those are all very different than myself, who might want to escape to a beautiful location on a tropical beach and relax and recharge my batteries. But I'm not saying that's not as important at that time, but I wouldn't define it as true wellness travel.
And I tend to agree. I mean, I think sometimes, and it may be a bit controversial, but I think sometimes the wellness market gets a bit exaggerated because, you know, people are saying, oh, there's this huge $1 billion market out there. I think, and Lazo and I have had a number of conversations about this, is that really going to a wellness destination, be it the Canyon Ranch or be it coming to a retreat in Bali, there is, or a beautiful place in Koh Samui. I mean, there is a myriad of opportunities to go and visit, but it has to be very focused because, as I earlier said, and as you clearly point out, I mean, going and sitting on a beautiful beach in Bermuda is true wellness in the sense of we are really looking after ourselves. And I know Laszlo often plans those sort of trips. to his favorite Greek islands. But at the end of the day, there is not a direct, link that then says, well, I'm going to physically undergo a bit of a transformation. I'm going to change my dining habits or my physical habits, whatever it may be. So I think it's a very important aspect to also to really embrace and say to travelers, because you're not a yoga specialist, and I'm definitely right at the top of that list. But the amount of guests that I've met over the years who have come in and said, I never thought I could do yoga, but by attending the morning yoga class, complimentary part of my stay, I realized that it's not as complicated as it is. And there's some wonderful teachers that we have in the world who just really embrace it and who really understand that not everybody is a yogi like Laszlo. No, maybe not yogi, but not everybody understands that we're not all expert in yoga because we work in the wellness world. There is and I think sometimes that's also maybe been a bit of a barrier of entry, is that it's not just about being such a specialist. The wellness world and wellness travel is open to anybody. And your customers who are going on that trip, they may be beginners, but everybody is a beginner. Everybody starts on something and everybody starts that journey. And the easier we make it for those people, I think the longer term, the better it becomes.
Yes, and you asked the question about how to do this in GCC. So anyone who you want to create a wellness improving experience, and I would need to go back to one of the previous points, that any activity can and may contribute to your well-being one way or another. It does. Short-lived or longer-lived, doesn't matter, but it does, whatever activity that is. So it doesn't have to be a de facto wellness activity. Seeing your loved ones after 2 years, that could contribute to your well-being. It doesn't have to be a wellness trip per se, and so on and so on. But for any property or any developer, any destination, you really need to go beyond the usual activities or treatments and sit down a little and do a little bit of homework and say that to most of your guests who are coming from a different part of the world, just sitting quietly in the desert with no treatments, anything, no people around you, just the eternal quietness of the desert, day or night or both, could be a luxurious and amazingly gratifying, wellness improving experience.
Because it's the peace and quiet, isn't it? I mean, yes, it's the beautiful sounds of nothing.
Or let's say when you are in in Central America, where we also work, just sitting in the tropical rainforest and enjoying the afternoon rain on the Caribbean side, and just being in that space that most of us wouldn't have this opportunity to sit in a tropical rain because living in a different part of the world typically. So when you understand that creating a different scenario to guests, that could be an amazing and wellness contributing service. But this is what I mentioned, let's say 23 minutes ago, that you need to orchestrate, you need to create that service, you need to be aware what exactly you have and how that can be introduced to the guests. And at the end of the day, it will be more balancing, a harmonious and wellness contributing service. So that's why we need to have a bit of a well-being engineering taking place, and not just creating services.
And what sort of segments or facilities would you look at?
This is what we. It's very recent. No one's seen that before. That's we kept it for the ATM to talk about it, because the data is now being further analyzed and further applied to various countries and regions. And I need to mention our colleagues at Oryx in Dubai, who helped us a little bit fine-tuning this data, looking at how the global and regional data can be adapted down to country or destination level. And this is where we are when you look at segments and look at various trigger points. You can see that that's not necessarily the same trigger points that we saw in the global data. And we look at services and treatments. Molly and also John, both of you are using the therapist based on natural resources and traditional healing. That's exactly what you have been using. And this is what we see is going to represent business opportunities in GCC or in Dubai. And interestingly, guests who are looking for healthy options, they expect it to be the number one in terms of representing growth. Not wellness travelers per se, but any kind of traveler who are looking for healthy options. And interestingly, we have the medical spa coming into the picture, which is a cross between, Molly, you mentioned it briefly, the medical side and the wellness side, and the joint efforts of, sometimes as we call it, integrative health, that it's the person is the main target, not the illness, because then you incorporate all sorts of therapies and treatments into with a certain kind of outcome in mind, and less so attacking just a certain indication. So your medical is coming in, especially in GCC, which is an interesting observation, interesting forecast. It is not typical to most parts of the world.
And in terms of other service and treatments, you've got, I see, fitness, traditional healing approaches. Is that something you're slowly seeing coming in?
Most certainly, but I'm based in Europe, so I can tell you that, and more particularly in Eastern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, that has been the number one topic, number one service and treatments for the last, 15 years. Yeah. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It stays there, and this part of the world is very much based on natural hot springs and climates, and even caves and climates in caves, which are preventative as well as rehabilitative. So that certainly is happening, and I'm very pleased to see that GCC is forecasted to pay more attention to anything that's natural. It comes the sea, it comes the sand, it comes the Islamic healing traditions that are thousands and thousands of years old, and so on. So I think we may see a bit of change from standard spa services into something which is more grounded locally. It doesn't mean that spas are not staying, just saying that they change or shift a little.
And I think, Laszlo, what you touched on there is that it's all about being local. And the beauty of the Middle East and the Arab world is that you have these amazing landscapes. You have this environment that lends it so much to create this environment. And I mean, just some of the oases they have through the Middle East. I mean, the mountain ranges they have. I think there's just a myriad of opportunities that are going to present itself over the years, because it's the natural facilities and the natural environment. And I think, Molly, I mean, that if one looks at Arizona as a place, I mean, that's why so many people go to Arizona, because how the air works and how the environment is.
Yeah, and I think, though, there is the luxury of being able to create a destination in a very beautifully natural, inspiring location. But I would have to acknowledge also that wellness and transformation and what we're talking about can be created in even the most densely populated areas, by creating a beautiful space and holding space for people, so that they don't always have to leave to go seek it. I mean, I think, two of us said we love being in nature, right? So I think there is something to be said about that. But I know that, again, when we're talking about acknowledging the people that constantly win awards, they tend to be situated in these beautiful, breathtaking locations. But wellness and healing can take place in other, and I think it's important that we have these places in these densely populated areas where people can partake in healing modalities. Yep.
Laszlo, you talk a bit about the special wellness knowledge or for the trade in some senses. How is that going to help, and how do we educate people?
Yes, I think now, sort of wrapping it up as well, the whole discussion that we have, concluding more like, I think we need to really educate and trade, as well as increase their capacity of how they can wellnessify of whatever they do. Let it be a travel agent, let it be an accommodation provider, let it be, let's say, F&B provider. How they can create more well service. That's a business opportunity here, and also business task, because that needs a little bit of revisiting of what you do. And we see that people are interested in anything that's more healthy. They're interested in knowing more about it. So the trade would need to be ready to provide this instead of going back to 2019 when we're just promoting certain kind of services and treatments. The market is changing, as it seems. Therefore, the trade would need to change as well. And we see that the specialist wellness knowledge is expected, especially from agents. And the WTA with the Travel Institute has the specialist training program, if I may refer to that, that is specifically targeting agents and advisors.
I think also, Laszlo, I mean, there's so many activities that are happening around the world. I mean, there's the wonderful World Wellness Weekend, which takes place in middle of September, which is organized by a good friend of Anne, Jean-Guy. And this is like a global movement that has really taken place. There's no cost to be involved. There's a wonderful opportunity for everybody to go and go to a place and take part of a weekend of wellness. And I think there's so many things that are taking place.
Yeah, and if you want to do just one day, you could do the Global Wellness Day, which is coming up in exactly a month's time.
Yeah, so I think there is much more awareness of it, which is really nice.
Yeah, and you can try, and especially when you go to places and you can try new things. The door is opening, the market is interested, but so the trade would need to pick up a little, and instead of just promoting how many jacuzzis or saunas treatments you might have, go beyond that, look into what exactly may make people buy certain services. And I just want to briefly touch on this medical wellness merge, or more like convergence. So, Molly, well, how do you see that? Because you have been in this for quite some time, and also 5 Elements that is not alien to you to talk about a medical.
Yeah, for a little over 30 years, we've actually had medical facilities at our 2 major wellness retreats and resort centers. And it's an important part of what we refer to as integrative medicine, and really listening, there's definitely a medical cause, but I love to use the example of sleep and the person that comes to our medical offices regarding sleep. And after much conversation and perhaps an overnight sleep study, the reality is that it's not a medical issue. It truly is something else. And it could be related to diet. It could be related to stress, as simple as stress. And so I do believe that there's this interchange of medical treatments and wellness and an overlapping, because so many people come to us maybe with what they perceive to be a medical ailment that can be treated holistically, or they come with wanting to not go with traditional medicine, but have another opinion and see if maybe some sort of physical therapy might help them with a pain issue or something like that. But I think that there is definitely, I even look at the Mayo Clinic, which is going further and further into offering integrative support to their patients, to their customers, that it's not just a treatment facility. It's not just a place you go for your physical, but they are now basically adding all these other tools to help you transition to become a healthier individual if necessary.
It is interesting, isn't it, Molly, with the balance of, and it's one thing at 5 Elements, we never started on the medical treatments, and the founders were very clear in the early days of creating the business that they felt medical is a very specific field, and it's very much something that there is very clear boundaries around. But as you correctly say, Molly, I mean, a lot of guests who come to a wellness facility, it's often not really a medical issue. It's really much more about a general issue that is to do with sleeping or stress that they can actually probably work their way through, and just adding medicine to it is going to be a short-term solution, where it's actually a longer-term solution, and be they eating plant-based food or just having a better diet or going for regular walks or runs, whatever it may be, there is other solutions. And I think that's what the world needs to focus on, and what's taking place at the moment is probably highlighting a lot of that.
May I add one point here, and then we can, I believe, wrap up. Especially in GCC, healthcare and medical travel is very important product, and all around, especially Dubai, but not only, exclusively. And I think what we will see, or hopefully we will see, is that how the wellness hospitality approach is infiltrating into healthcare. And it doesn't make it as a wellness trip, obviously, but we can have a different kind of healthcare. There is more interest in hospitality, more interested in the wellness approach in the healthcare provision. So that, I think, is a major opportunity there. That's really no question about that. And also, the last point here, many of the medical interventions, especially elective interventions, are not medically defined. When you do plastic surgery, that's often it's a self-image. It's often a psychological issue, not a medical issue such.
Totally.
So there is a murky little area here. But we need to be aware of that, because it's a medical intervention, but actually it's not a medical issue.
Yep.
And I think you touch on plastic surgery, and Canyon Ranch ventured into medical grade aesthetics, that sort of thing. And to your point, we found by introducing aesthetics, we were reaching people that they felt like it was safe to do it in our environment, where they would not have done it somewhere else. So, and then as far as plastic surgery, we've seen in Arizona, especially, these people that are really rehabilitating following plastic surgery. And to your point, learning to perhaps live with their new self, and again, not knowing what causation of the plastic surgery, but really before they're willing to face the world, they're becoming more comfortable with themselves. It's interesting.
Well, it's self-esteem, isn't it? Really, that one is seeing.
Yeah. And as a last point here, John, our favorite topic, what we have been discussing for quite some time now, is anything to do with spa, wellness, and healthcare is a kind of a satellite to hospitality business.
Yeah.
And this is a very hot topic in GCC, given the sheer size of the market and the development there, hospitality development there, and also the spa, wellness, and healthcare interest. Are we still looking at it as a satellite, or are we looking at it as an integration, and how that can take place in terms of service design, operation models, owners' expectations, management, communication, and all that? Because we now see that the market is looking for options, and this is when you need a bit of guidance. What would fit into that category? What services would be minimum? What would be definitely provided? And you cannot call yourself a wellness hotel, for example, unless you did that. So that's a lot of hot topics here, isn't it, John?
Yeah, and I think, and as you and I have been discussing this many times, I mean, hospitality is such a big word, and integrating wellness into hospitality, and that's what Canyon Ranch does every single day. That's what Five Elements in Bali do every single day. That's what John created in Koh Samui with the beautiful resort there. I mean, what he does every single day. But we in that industry are very focused on that that balance and that mix. And we understand that in order for a guest to feel comfortable and to go through a transformation, you have to have the pillars around you to look after that. It is about being taken care of, and it is about being, improving. And I'm sure, Molly, I mean, you fit right into that category.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a big thing, and I think the more we look at that, and I suppose, Laszlo, that's led us to that whole conversation about creating frameworks for hotels and wellness destinations to really measure themselves, so that when a customer says to the travel agent, I want to go on a wellness holiday, then the travel agent can turn around and say, this is a wellness destination. Don't just go to a hotel that has a spa, go to a wellness destination, because it's going to give you that all-encompassing opportunities.
I think it's really time to wrap it up, and we had a wonderful discussion, and I really appreciate that I could take part of this. And if nothing else, as a take-home message, we collected a couple to the audience in terms of just repeating ourselves, but also highlighting that there's a growing interest and awareness, and that's an opportunity. We have to address that, and we have to be prepared for that. And also, we need to understand that markets can be very different, even within the same country can be very different. And I'm sure both of you know that very well, that you may not talk to the same way anyone in the East Coast of the US or the West Coast of the US. Even in the same state, you might need to speak to people very differently, even if they want to, if you want to get them to your own facility. We also understand that the industry needs a bit of guidance, and also the travelers, of what is what and who is who, because this is now the awareness, and this is our role as an association as well. We have a role, or we can get the role that we can play in all this. And every service provider, such as the 5 Elements or Canyon Ranch, also you play your own role in this to provide that guidance. And also we believe that hospitality really needs to change its approach.
They are excellent points, and thank you very much, Laszlo, for the very detailed presentation and the fascinating research. I mean, it's been a great pleasure for us to be part of the Arabian travel market, and I think there's some wonderful opportunities for the travelers, for businesses in the Arab world to really embrace wellness, and we know it's there, and we look forward to watching the next decade, if we can say, all develop. Molly, thank you very much for being part of this wonderful conversation. Laszlo, for your great work. And on behalf of the Wellness Tourism Association and everybody at the Arabian travel market, we wish you a wonderful time and a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and send you our warmest hugs and wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Molly, and thank you, Laszlo. On behalf of Wellness Tourism Association, thank you, and stay safe and well.
Thank you.